They say the quietest people harbor the loudest storms. Ethan Caldwell thought he was the king of the world. He had the thriving tech empire, the millions in the bank, and the secret mistress he thought no one knew about. But when he walked through his front door after a night of betrayal, he didn't find a screaming match. He found silence. His wife, Sarah, hadn't just left. She had vanished into thin air, leaving behind a single envelope that would bring his entire world crashing down. This isn't just a story about cheating. It's a masterclass in revenge. You won't believe what Sarah was hiding the whole time. The sun was already high over the skyline of Seattle, cutting through the blinds of the penthouse apartment like a laser. Ethan Caldwell groaned, shielding his eyes as he sat up. The headache was immediate, a sharp, rhythmic thumping behind his temples that tasted like expensive scotch and regret. Beside him, the sheets stirred. Jamie, her blonde hair fanned out over the pillows, murmured something unintelligible and rolled over. Ethan looked at her, and for the first time in 6 months, the sight didn't bring a thrill of illicit excitement. It brought a wave of nausea. He checked his Rolex on the nightstand. 10:30 a.m. "Damn it!" he hissed, scrambling out of bed. He had a board meeting at noon. He was supposed to be at his marital home in Bellevue 2 hours ago to change his suit. "Going so soon?" Jamie purred, propping herself up on one elbow. She didn't look worried. She never looked worried. She was the new VP of marketing at Caldwell Tech, and she knew exactly who held the reins. "I have to go home, Jess. Sarah thinks I was at a conference in Portland. I have to play the part," Ethan muttered, buttoning his shirt with shaking hands. "Sarah," Jamie scoffed, rolling her eyes. "The mouse. When are you going to tell her, Ethan? You promised me by Christmas." "I will, just not today." Ethan grabbed his jacket and practically ran out the door. The drive to Bellevue was a blur of anxiety. He rehearsed his lies in the rearview mirror. The flight was delayed. Traffic was a nightmare. My phone died. The usual script. Sarah never questioned him anyway. She was the perfect, dutiful wife. Quiet, supportive, and frankly, boring. She kept the house clean, hosted the dinner parties, and never asked why he smelled like women's perfume or why he worked late so often. He pulled his Aston Martin into the driveway of the sprawling estate on Oak Creek Drive. It was a beautiful house, a testament to his success, but today it felt imposing. He unlocked the front door. "Sarah, honey, I'm home," he called out, putting on his best, exhausted husband voice. Silence. Usually the smell of brewing coffee or fresh pastries greeted him. Sarah was a stress baker, but the air was stale, cold. "Sarah?" He walked into the kitchen. The counters were gleaming, wiped down to a sterile shine. There were no dishes in the drying rack, no mail on the island. He frowned and walked up the grand staircase to the master bedroom. The door was open. The bed was made with military precision, the decorative pillows arranged perfectly. "Sarah, are you in the bathroom?" He pushed the bathroom door open. Empty. No towels on the floor. No array of skin-care products on the vanity. A cold pit formed in his stomach. He turned to the walk-in closet, the closet he had custom-built for her last year as an anniversary gift to assuage his guilt. He threw the doors open. He gasped. It was empty. Not just messy, empty. The racks where her designer dresses hung were bare wire. The shelves for her shoes were vacant. Even the drawers were pulled out slightly to show nothing remained inside. It was as if she had never existed. He spun around, panic rising in his throat. That's when he saw it. On the dark wood of the dresser, sitting alone in the center of the room, was a large manila envelope. Sitting on top of the envelope was her wedding ring. The diamond caught the sunlight, a 3-carat stone he had bought to shut her up after their first big fight years ago. He walked over, his legs feeling like lead. He picked up the ring. It was cold. He opened the envelope. Inside were 3 distinct stacks of paper. The first was a legal document, petition for dissolution of marriage. The second was a printed screenshot. It was a photo from a restaurant security camera. It showed Ethan and Jamie holding hands across a table at Le Monde, a place he hadn't taken Sarah in years. The date stamp was from 3 days ago. The third was a handwritten note on her personalized stationery. Ethan, I didn't want to believe it. I tried to look away for 2 years. But the bank transfers to her account, the late nights, and finally, seeing you with her. I'm done. I'm not fighting you for the house. I'm not fighting you for the cars. I don't want your money. I just want out. Don't look for me. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. Ethan stared at the paper. His hands were trembling so hard the paper rattled. She knew. She had known for 2 years. And she had said nothing? He grabbed his phone and dialed her number. We're sorry. The number you have dialed has been disconnected. He dialed again. Same result. No, 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 he muttered. He ran downstairs to the safe in his study. He spun the dial and yanked it open. His passport was there. His cash reserves were there. But the velvet box where Sarah kept her grandmother's emeralds was gone. And the binder, the blue binder where she kept the household ledgers, was missing. He slumped into his leather chair. He should have felt relieved. Jamie wanted him to leave Sarah. Sarah had just made it easy. No alimony, no fight for the house. It was the perfect divorce. So why did he feel like the floor had just dropped out from under him? The next 48 hours were a surreal fog. Ethan stayed in the empty house, jumping at every creak of the floorboards, half expecting Sarah to walk in with groceries and apologize for the prank. She didn't. By Monday morning, he had to go to the office. He dressed in a wrinkled shirt, unable to find the dry cleaning Sarah usually picked up on Fridays. He couldn't find his favorite cufflinks. Sarah organized them by color. He couldn't even find the coffee beans. Apparently, she hid the reserve stash somewhere he didn't know about. He arrived at Caldwell Tech at 9:00 a.m. sharp. The glass-walled office in downtown Seattle usually energized him. Today, it felt like a cage. "Good morning, Mr. Caldwell," his assistant, Brenda, chirped. She looked at him, her smile faltering slightly. Are you all right? You look a bit pale." "I'm fine," Ethan snapped. "Get me Mr. Sterling on the phone, my personal lawyer." "Now." Brenda nodded, eyes wide, and scurried away. Ethan slammed his door shut. He sat at his desk and stared at the family photo frame facing him. It was empty. Sarah had come in over the weekend, presumably using her spare key, and removed the photo of them from the company picnic. She left the frame, though, a hollow glass rectangle staring back at him. The phone buzzed. Mr. Sterling on line 1. Ethan picked up. "Marcus? It's Ethan." "Ethan, good morning. I assume you've received the courier package?" Marcus Sterling's voice was grave. "I found the papers on my dresser. Marcus, what the hell is going on? She says she doesn't want alimony. Is that a trick?" "It's highly unusual," Marcus admitted. "I've reviewed the filing her lawyer sent over this morning. It's airtight. She's waiving spousal support, waiving claim to the business assets, waiving claim to the marital home. She is asking for a clean break, immediate dissolution." Ethan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "So, I won?" "Technically, yes. It's the divorce settlement of the century for a man in your position." "But Ethan..." Marcus paused. "Her lawyer is Julius Thorne." Ethan froze. "Julius Thorne? The corporate shark from New York. Sarah doesn't know people like that. Sarah buys her clothes at outlets and volunteers at the library. Apparently she does know people like that. Thorne doesn't take domestic cases unless there's high stakes. It makes me nervous, Ethan. Why would she hire a corporate killer just to wave a white flag? Maybe she just wants to get away from me that badly, Ethan said, a bitter taste in his mouth. Maybe, but sign the papers quickly before she changes her mind. I'll send a messenger. Ethan hung up. He should be celebrating. He could marry Jamie. They could be the power couple of Seattle. There was a knock at the door. Jamie walked in, not waiting for an answer. She was wearing a tight red dress that was borderline inappropriate for the office, but she didn't care. I heard the rumor, she said, closing the door and locking it. A smirk played on her lips. Brenda says you look like you saw a ghost. Did she leave? Ethan looked at her. For the first time, he noticed how sharp her features were. Predatory. She's gone, Jess. Left divorce papers. Waived everything. Jamie's eyes lit up. Everything? The money? The house? Everything. Jamie let out a squeal and rushed over, throwing her arms around his neck. Oh my God, Ethan, this is perfect. We can finally stop hiding. We can renovate the house. I hated those dusty old curtains she had. She's been gone 2 days, Jess, Ethan said, pulling away slightly. Can we maybe wait before we redecorate? Jamie pulled back, offended. Why? You were planning to leave her anyway. This just saves us the legal fees. We should go out tonight. Celebrate. I have to work. We have the quarterly investor meeting on Wednesday. I need to prep. Fine, Jamie pouted. But don't be late. I'm booking Le Monde again. She left, swaying her hips. Ethan rubbed his temples. He turned to his computer to pull up the quarterly reports. He needed the financial projections for the presentation. He navigated to the shared server, the folder labeled Financials, Internal. It was password protected. He frowned. He typed in his usual password. Access denied. He typed in the admin password. Access denied. He picked up the phone. Brenda, get IT on the line. I can't get into the financial reports. 2 minutes later, the IT director, a nervous man named Kevin, was on the line. Mr. Caldwell, I'm looking at the logs. The password was changed on Saturday night. Changed by who? By the user, Caldwell, admin. Ethan's blood ran cold. Sarah? Sarah doesn't have admin access. She just helped with some bookkeeping in the early days. Well, sir, according to the system logs, that account has had root administrator privileges for 5 years. She built the file architecture. Ethan dropped the phone. He remembered now. 5 years ago, when the company was just starting to scale, they couldn't afford a CFO. Sarah, who had a degree in mathematics he often forgot about, had offered to set up the database. He had let her, then patted her on the head and hired a real team once the money rolled in. He had forgotten she held the keys. He tried another folder. Client contacts. Access denied. Pending patents. Access denied. Panic, real and visceral, set in. He wasn't just locked out of his house's comfort, he was being locked out of his own company's brain. His cell phone pinged. A text message from an unknown number. He opened it. It was a PDF file. He clicked it open. It was an invoice, a consulting invoice from a company called Nemesis Solutions. To Caldwell Tech. From Nemesis Solutions Service. Decryption key for root access. Cost $5,000. Beneath the price was a simple line of text. Did you really think I just arranged the flowers? S. Ethan stared at the screen. $5 million. She didn't want alimony. She was ransoming his own company back to him. And the investor meeting was in 48 hours. If he couldn't access those files, the stock would tank, and the board would have his head on a platter. Sarah wasn't just a scorned wife. She was a sleeper agent in his own life, and she had just detonated the bomb. Ethan sat in his leather executive chair, staring at the blinking cursor on his screen. The text from the unknown number burned in his mind. $5,000. "She can't do this," he whispered to the empty room. "It's extortion." He grabbed his phone and dialed Marcus Sterling again. "Marcus, I need you to file an emergency injunction. She's locked the servers. She's demanding $5 million to release the encryption keys." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Ethan, listen to me very carefully. Did Sarah have authorized access to those systems?" "Yes, I told you. She built the damn architecture years ago. But she's holding the company hostage. If she has admin privileges that were never revoked, legally, she hasn't hacked anything. She's just changed the password on a system she owns permissions for. We can take her to court, sure. We can file a motion to compel discovery." "Great, do that," Ethan snapped. "That will take at least 6 weeks to get a hearing, Ethan. Maybe 3 months. Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. "I have the investor meeting in 48 hours. If I can't show the projections, the stock drops. If the stock drops below a certain threshold, the bank calls in my leverage loans. I lose the company, Marcus." "Then I suggest you pay her," Marcus said, his voice devoid of sympathy. "And Ethan, if she's asking for $5 million, it's because she knows you have it, or she knows where you're hiding it." Ethan hung up. He swore loudly and swept a stack of papers off his desk. They fluttered to the floor like dead leaves. He did have the money. Or he was supposed to. Ethan had a rainy day fund. It wasn't in the joint accounts. It was a shell company account in the Cayman Islands, registered under the name Orion Holdings. He used it to funnel bonuses and skimmed profits off the top before they hit the official books. It was his escape hatch. He logged into the offshore banking portal. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Username, eCaldwell01. Password. The screen loaded. Account balance, $14.30. Ethan stared. He blinked, thinking it was a glitch. He refreshed the page. $14.32. Below the balance was a transaction history. A single transfer made 3 days ago. Transfer to SJC. Trust. Amount $5,250,000. Authorization, physical key fob, Nara 2. Ethan slumped back, gasping for air. Key fob number 2. He kept that fob in the false bottom of his golf bag. Sarah didn't golf. She hated golf. How did she find it? "She cleaned me out," he muttered. "She stole my money to ransom my own company back to me." The door to his office burst open. Jamie strode in, carrying several shopping bags from Nordstrom. "Ethan, why is your card declined?" she demanded, throwing a platinum credit card onto his desk. "I was trying to buy that vintage wine for tonight, and the cashier looked at me like I was a pauper. It was humiliating." Ethan looked at the card, then at Jamie. The contrast between her petty grievance and his imploding life was too much. "The accounts are frozen, Jamie," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Frozen? Why? Did the bank make a mistake?" She sat on the edge of his desk, crossing her legs. "Fix it, Ethan. We have reservations." "Sarah took it," he said. "She took the liquidity. She took the offshore money. She locked the servers." Jamie frowned, her perfectly sculpted eyebrows knitting together. "Wait. You said she left nothing. You said she waived alimony. How can she take the money if she waived her rights?" "Because she's smarter than I thought," Ethan roared, slamming his fist on the desk. Jamie jumped, dropping her purse. "She didn't ask for the money legally because she already stole it. And now she wants $5 million more from the company accounts to let me keep my job." Jamie's face changed. The seductress vanished, replaced by a cold calculator. So, you're broke? Not broke, just illiquid. I have assets. The house, the cars, the boat. The house she waived claim to, Jamie asked sharply. Can we sell it? Not in 2 days. I need cash now. Ethan stood up, pacing. I have to liquidate the toys, the Aston Martin, the yacht docked at the marina. I can get a bridge loan from a private lender if I put them up as collateral. You're selling the Aston, Jamie whined. But I love that car. You promised we'd drive it to Napa next month. Ethan stopped pacing and looked at her. Really looked at her. Jamie, I am fighting for my life here. If I don't get $5 million into a crypto wallet by tomorrow night, Caldwell Tech is finished. If the company goes under, there is no Napa, there is no penthouse. There is you and me, living in a rental apartment, dodging subpoenas. Jamie recoiled as if he'd slapped her. I didn't sign up for poverty, Ethan. You told me you were a king. Kings get overthrown, he snarled. Now get out! I have to make calls. Jamie grabbed her shopping bags. She didn't offer to help. She didn't ask if he was okay. She just looked at him, with a mix of pity and disgust, turned on her heel, and left. Ethan didn't watch her go. He was already dialing the number of a man named Sal, a hard money lender who didn't ask questions as long as you had the title to a luxury yacht. By the following afternoon, Ethan looked 10 years older. He hadn't slept. He had spent the last 24 hours frantically selling off his life. He sold the Aston Martin for 30% under market value to a collector who paid cash. He signed over the title of his 60-foot yacht, the Seawolf, to Sal for an emergency loan at an extortionate interest rate. He even liquidated his watch collection. He had managed to scrape together $4.8 million. He was short. He needed to buy time, or he needed to negotiate. He found the address for Julius Thorne's law firm. It wasn't in the shiny glass towers of downtown where Caldwell Tech was. It was in Pioneer Square, in an old, restored brick building that screamed old money and quiet power. Ethan straightened his tie in the reflection of the brass plaque. Thorne and Associates, Private Client Services. He marched inside. The receptionist, a man in his 50s with impeccable posture, didn't ask for his name. Mr. Caldwell, Mr. Thorne is expecting you in the library. Ethan walked through the heavy oak doors. The office was dimly lit, smelling of leather and mahogany. Walls were lined with books that looked like they hadn't been touched in a century. Julius Thorne sat behind a massive desk. He was a man of indeterminate age, maybe 50, maybe 60. He wore a charcoal suit that cost more than Ethan's first car. He didn't stand up. Mr. Caldwell, Thorne said. His voice was smooth, like gravel wrapped in velvet. Please, sit. I don't want to sit, Ethan said, remaining standing to assert dominance. It didn't work. Thorne just looked at him with mild amusement. Where is she? Where is Sarah? My client is currently unavailable. She is enjoying a much-deserved vacation in a location that doesn't have an extradition treaty with the United States. Not that she needs one. She stole $5 million from my private accounts, Ethan accused, and she's blackmailing me for 5 more. Thorne sighed and opened a leather folder on his desk. Mr. Caldwell, let's be precise with our language. The $5 million you referred to was in an account named Orion Holdings, an account that, legally speaking, does not belong to you. It belongs to a shell corporation, a corporation that failed to file tax returns for the last 4 years. Ethan froze. Thorne continued, adjusting his glasses. My client, Sarah, has been the acting CFO of your household and, unofficially, the fixer for your company's accounting irregularities. She noticed the Orion account years ago. Instead of reporting you to the IRS then, She simply ensured she was a signatory on the account just in case. She considers that money back pay for her silence. "She was my wife," Ethan shouted. "She was supposed to be on my side." "She was on your side," Thorne said, his eyes hardening, "until you brought Miss Jamie Miller into the picture. Sarah tolerated the late nights. She tolerated the neglect. But when you started using company funds she worked hard to wash for you, to buy Miss Miller jewelry, that was an insult to her professional pride." Ethan felt sick. Sarah knew about the laundering. She knew everything. "I have 4.8 million, Ethan said, his voice breaking. "That's everything I have. I sold the car. I mortgaged the boat. Tell her to take it and unlock the server." Thorne tapped a pen against the desk. "The price is 5 million, Mr. Caldwell. My client is very specific about numbers. She is a mathematician, after all. I don't have the other 200,000. I can't get it by tomorrow." Thorne leaned back. "That is unfortunate, because if the money isn't in the escrow account by midnight, the encryption key is deleted, and a secondary protocol initiates." "Secondary protocol?" "Yes. If the ransom is not paid, an automated email is sent to the Securities and Exchange Commission, as well as the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. Attached to that email will be the full ledger of Orion Holdings, linking it directly to you." Ethan gripped the back of the chair in front of him. "She's trying to destroy me." "No, Mr. Caldwell. Destruction would be sending that email immediately. This is a business transaction. You purchased a life of luxury and adultery. Now the bill has come due." Thorne paused, then slid a piece of paper across the desk. "However," Thorne said softly, "there is an alternative option to cover the remaining $200,000 deficit." Ethan snatched the paper. It was a property transfer deed. Property 142 Oak Creek Drive, Bellevue, WA. Grantee, the Sarah J. Caldwell Foundation for Women. "The house," Ethan whispered. "Correct," Thorne said. "She waived her claim to the house in the divorce papers, yes. But if you want to save your company and stay out of prison, you will voluntarily donate the marital home to her charitable trust. She intends to turn it into a shelter for displaced women." Ethan stared at the paper. The house was his pride, his status symbol. Jamie was already planning the renovations. "If I sign this," Ethan said, gritting his teeth, "I'm homeless." "You have an apartment in the city, do you not?" "No. It's a corporate lease. If the board fires me, I lose that too." "High stakes." Thorne smiled thinly. "It's 4 p.m., Mr. Caldwell. Banks close soon. Sign the deed and wire the 4.8 million and you get your company back. Refuse, and you get a federal indictment." Ethan looked at the Mont Blanc pen sitting on the desk. He thought of Jamie, waiting for him at a hotel because she refused to stay in the dusty house. He thought of the board meeting tomorrow. He picked up the pen. He signed the house away. "Wise choice," Thorne said, taking the paper back instantly. "The server access will be restored the moment the wire hits our account." Ethan stumbled out of the office into the grey Seattle drizzle. He had saved his company. He had avoided jail. But he was walking back to a life that was rapidly shrinking. He pulled out his phone to call Jamie, to tell her they needed to find a hotel for the foreseeable future. He saw a notification from his bank app. Alert. Joint checking account overdrawn. He frowned. He had emptied the joint account days ago. It should be at zero. He opened the app. There was a charge from Le Monde Restaurant. $800 from an hour ago. And a charge at Tiffany & Co. $12,000. Declined. Jamie. She still had the secondary card he forgot to cancel. She was out spending money he didn't have while he was selling his soul to a lawyer. He dialed her number. "Hey, baby," she answered. Background noise of clinking glasses. "Did you fix it?" "Where are you?" Ethan asked, his voice dead. "I'm at Le Monde having a drink with some friends. I was so stressed I needed to unwind. Did you get the money?" "I sold the house, Jamie." Silence. "What?" "I sold the house to pay the ransom. We have nowhere to live. I need you to check us into a Motel 6 because I don't have the credit for the Four Seasons anymore." You sold the mansion?" Her voice rose an octave. "Are you joking?" "I wish I was. I'm coming to pick you up. We need to talk." "Don't bother," Jamie said coldly. "Excuse me?" "Ethan, if you don't have the house, and you don't have the money, and you're under investigation by your own ex-wife, you're a liability. I'm the VP of marketing. I can't be seen with a failure." "I made you VP of marketing!" Ethan screamed, passers-by staring at him. "And I'm thankful for the resume boost, but I think we should take a break. I'm going to stay with a friend." The line went dead. Ethan stood in the rain, water dripping off his nose. He had sacrificed everything to keep the company, thinking he was saving his future with Jamie. Now he had the company, but he had no home, no money, no wife, and no mistress. But at least the nightmare was over. Right? His phone pinged. An email from admin@coldwelltech.com. Subject: access restored. Ethan, payment received. Servers are unlocked. Good luck with the board meeting. Check the sent folder in your email before you present. Ethan's stomach dropped. Check the sent folder? He opened the Outlook app on his phone. He navigated to his sent items. There was one email sent 5 minutes ago. To the entire board of directors. Subject: my resignation. Ethan fell to his knees on the wet pavement. Ethan didn't run. He sprinted. He ignored the speed limits, his rented sedan fishtailing on the wet asphalt as he tore toward the Caldwell Tech headquarters. His phone was buzzing incessantly, calls from Brenda, calls from board members, calls from reporters. But he threw it onto the passenger seat. He had to stop the bleeding. He had to tell them the email was a hack. He could blame it on a cyber-terrorist group. He could blame it on corporate espionage. He was the founder. They needed him. He screeched into the parking garage, bypassing his reserved spot, which, he noted with a pang of dread, already had the nameplate removed. He sprinted to the elevator, jamming the button for the 40th floor. When the doors slid open, the silence was deafening. Usually, the floor was buzzing with analysts and sales reps. Today, people were huddled in whispers, eyes darting toward him before quickly looking away. It was the look people gave a man walking to the gallows. Ethan marched to the conference room. He didn't knock. He threw the double glass doors open. The entire board of directors was there, 12 men and women sitting around the oval table. At the head sat Arthur Vance, the chairman of the board, and the man who had been Ethan's mentor 15 years ago. "Arthur," Ethan gasped, chest heaving. "The email. It wasn't me. My account was compromised. I didn't resign." Arthur Vance didn't smile. He slowly removed his reading glasses and placed them on the mahogany table. "Sit down, Ethan." "I don't need to sit. I need to call IT security. We've been hacked." "We haven't been hacked, Ethan," Arthur said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "We received your email, and we received the attachment. The Caldwell Ledger Art Final XLSX. Ethan felt the blood leave his legs. That's a fabrication." "Is it?" Arthur signaled to the screen at the front of the room. Projected on the wall was the spreadsheet, the Orion Holdings ledger. But it wasn't just numbers, it was annotated. Every transaction where Ethan had siphoned company profits to pay for Jamie's condo, her car, their vacations. It was all highlighted in red. And next to each transaction was a corresponding timestamp of where Ethan claimed to be at the time. Business trip, Tokyo, conference, Austin. The email came from your secure terminal, Arthur said. The text of the resignation was quite specific. It said, I, Ethan Caldwell, hereby resign as CEO effective immediately, due to my gross misappropriation of funds and breach of fiduciary duty. Attached is my confession. She wrote that, Ethan screamed. My ex-wife. She's framing me. It doesn't matter who wrote it, Ethan. A board member named Linda cut in sharply. The bank records are real. We verified the transaction IDs with the Cayman branch this morning. You stole $4 million from this company over 2 years. I can pay it back, Ethan stammered. I just wired $4.8 million to the company. Check the accounts. I paid it back, plus interest. Arthur shook his head, a look of profound disappointment on his face. We saw the wire, Ethan. It came from a personal account. But paying back the money after you've been caught doesn't undo the crime. It's an admission of guilt. And, Linda added, you didn't wire it to the company general fund. You wired it to the Nemesis Solutions escrow account, a shell company. We don't know where that money is. Ethan realized the trap. Sarah hadn't unlocked the server to help him. She had unlocked it to frame him. She made him pay the ransom, but she timed it, so it looked like he was trying to hide the evidence. The SEC has already been notified, Arthur said, standing up. As has the district attorney. Security is waiting outside. You can't do this, Ethan whispered. I built this company. And you looted it, Arthur said coldly. You're fired, Ethan. For cause. Your stock options are voided. Your severance is 0. And you are banned from the premises. 2 large security guards in dark suits stepped into the room. One was Jerry, a man Ethan had given a Christmas bonus to for 5 years running. Jerry didn't make eye contact as he grabbed Ethan's arm. Let's go, Mr. Caldwell, Jerry grunted. Ethan was dragged out of the boardroom. The walk of shame was agonizing. The entire office staff was watching through the glass walls. He saw Brenda, his assistant, crying. And then, near the elevators, he saw Jamie. She was holding a cardboard box filled with her personal items. A security guard was standing next to her too. Ethan shook off Jerry's grip for a second. Jamie! She looked up. Her mascara was running. She looked furious. You! She shrieked, pointing a manicured finger at him. You dragged me into this. Me? Ethan laughed, a hysterical, broken sound. You're the one who needed the penthouse. You're the one who needed the VP title. They fired me, Ethan. They said I was unqualified and a beneficiary of nepotism. I'm ruined. Who is going to hire a marketing VP who was sleeping with the boss for embezzlement money? We can figure it out, Ethan said, though he knew it was a lie. We can go to your parents' place in Oregon, Jamie sneered. My parents live in a trailer, Ethan. I'm not going to a trailer, and I'm certainly not going anywhere with you. The elevator doors opened. Jamie shoved past him, entering the car alone. Jamie, wait. Go to hell, Ethan, she spat. She hit the closed door button. Ethan watched the doors slide shut, severing the last tie to the life he thought he had. Jerry the guard pushed him toward the freight elevator. This way, sir. 10 minutes later, Ethan stood on the sidewalk in the pouring rain. He had no car. The rental company had just remotely disabled the sedan because his credit card on file had bounced. He had no home. He had no job. He had no wife. He had no mistress. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. One new notification. It was a news alert from the Wall Street Journal. Breaking. Caldwell Tech CEO ousted in scandal. Stock plummets 40%. Short sellers make billions. Short sellers. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Sarah hadn't just wanted the cash. She knew the stock would tank. If she had shorted the stock... He did the math in his head. If she leveraged the 5 million she stole to short the stock before sending that email... She didn't walk away with 10 million. She walked away with hundreds of millions. Ethan fell back against the wet brick of the building and slid down to the ground, laughing. He laughed until he choked. He laughed until he cried. She had played him like a fiddle. The quiet mouse was a lioness, and he had walked right into her den. 3 months later, the air in Lake Como, Italy, was very different from Seattle. It smelled of lemon trees, fresh water, and old money. Sarah sat on the terrace of a private villa, overlooking the shimmering blue water. She was wearing a white linen sundress and oversized sunglasses. A glass of Pinot Grigio sweated softly on the table next to her iPad. She wasn't Sarah Caldwell anymore. She had legally reverted to her maiden name, Sarah Vance. Wait, Vance. Her phone buzzed. It was a video call. She tapped the screen. Julius Thorne's face appeared, crisp and clear. "Good afternoon, Sarah. Or should I say, Signora?" Julius smiled. "Sarah is fine, Julius. How are things in the States?" "Chaotic," Julius said with satisfaction. "The SEC investigation into Ethan is proceeding. He's currently represented by a public defender. Apparently, no private firm will touch him since his assets are frozen." "A public defender," Sarah mused, taking a sip of wine. "That seems fitting." "And Ms. Miller?" Julius asked. "Jamie?" "Working as a hostess at a steakhouse in Portland, last I heard. She tried to sell her story to a tabloid, but without proof, which we deleted from the servers, they wouldn't pay her asking price." "Excellent." Julius paused. "The final settlement from the short positions has cleared. The funds are in your Swiss account. You are officially one of the wealthiest women in Europe." "Thank you, Julius. Your fee has been wired. Double as promised." "You're generous. One question, Sarah. Just for my own curiosity." "Go ahead. The chairman of the board, Arthur Vance. Any relation?" Sarah smiled, a genuine, dazzling smile that Ethan had never seen in their 10 years of marriage. "He's my uncle," Sarah said softly. "He never liked Ethan. When I told Uncle Arthur 2 years ago what Ethan was doing to me and to the company, Arthur wanted to fire him then. But I told him to wait. I told him I needed time to build the trap. Arthur agreed to play along. He needed Ethan to implicate himself so fully that he could never start a competitor company." Julius chuckled. "So the board meeting, the shock, it was all theatre?" "Partially. Arthur knew the email was coming. He just had to act surprised for the minutes. It was a family operation, Julius. We cleaned house." "Remind me never to cross a Vance," Julius said. "Enjoy Italy, Sarah." The call ended. Sarah set the iPad down. She stood up and walked to the edge of the balcony. Below, a sleek wooden speedboat was cutting through the water, approaching her private dock. The driver waved. It was a man. Tall, dark hair, broad shoulders. It wasn't a new lover. It was someone far more dangerous to Ethan's ego. It was Liam Blackwood, Ethan's college roommate. The one Ethan had mocked for years because Liam dropped out to start a non-profit solar energy company. Liam had stayed friends with Sarah over the years. He had been the one who first spotted Ethan with Jamie at a cafe and called Sarah. He had been her confidant. Liam tied the boat up and jogged up the stone steps. He joined her on the terrace, breathless and grinning. "You look like the cat who ate the canary," Liam said, kissing her cheek. "Better," Sarah said. "I'm the canary who ate the cat." "I brought the papers," Liam said, pulling a folder from his bag. "The acquisition is ready." Sarah opened the folder. "Project Phoenix, acquisition of Caldwell Tech assets. Buyer, Blackwood and Vance Energy. The stock bottomed out at $2 a share, Liam explained. We're buying the controlling interest for pennies on the dollar. We're going to gut the tech division and pivot the entire infrastructure to renewable energy grid management. It's exactly the software architecture you built 5 years ago, Sarah. We're finally using it for something good. Sarah ran her finger over the document. She was buying Ethan's company. She was going to erase his name from the building, erase his legacy, and turn his monument of greed into something that actually helped the world. "And the name?" Sarah asked. "We're renaming the building next week," Liam said. "The Sarah J. Vance Center for Innovation." Sarah laughed. It was a light, free sound. "Perfect," she said. "Where do I sign?" She signed the document with a flourish. "So," Liam said, pouring himself a glass of wine, "Ethan is ruining in Seattle. You own his company. You have his money. Is it over? Is the revenge complete?" Sarah looked out at the water. She thought about the 10 years she spent cooking, cleaning, and supporting a man who called her boring. She thought about the way he looked at Jamie, like she was a prize, and Sarah was an appliance. "Not quite," Sarah said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "There's one loose end." "Oh?" "The house," Sarah said. "The mansion in Bellevue. The one I turned into a women's shelter." "What about it?" "I heard the shelter needs a janitor," Sarah said, a wicked glint in her eye. "And since it's a charitable organization, they get tax credits for hiring people with troubled legal histories." Liam's jaw dropped. "You wouldn't?" "I already spoke to the director," Sarah said calmly. "They sent the job offer to Ethan's public defender this morning. It's part of a work release program if he wants to avoid jail time for the embezzlement. He can scrub the toilets in the house he used to own, cleaning up after the women he used to look down on." Liam stared at her for a moment, then burst out laughing. He raised his glass. "To Sarah Vance," he said, "the most terrifying woman I know." "To cleaning up," Sarah replied, clinking her glass against his. 6 months later, the rain in Seattle felt colder than Ethan remembered. Or maybe it was just that he no longer had a cashmere coat to protect him from it. Ethan Caldwell pushed the heavy industrial mop bucket across the marble floor of the grand foyer. The wheels squeaked, a sharp, irritating sound that echoed off the high ceilings. He winced, his back spasming. He wasn't used to physical labor. His hands, once manicured and soft, were now chapped and smelling permanently of bleach and ammonia. He looked up at the chandelier hanging above him. He remembered buying that chandelier in Paris. He remembered standing right here, a glass of champagne in hand, toasting to his first million. Now, he was scrubbing mud off the tiles because it was a rainy Tuesday and the residents were tracking dirt in. The house on Oak Creek Drive was no longer the Caldwell estate. A bronze plaque by the door read, "The Sarah J. Vance Sanctuary." It was a shelter for women escaping financial abuse and domestic turmoil. It was fully funded, efficiently run, and always full. And Ethan was the head of sanitation. It was part of his plea deal. The district attorney, pressured by the mountain of evidence Sarah had provided, offered him a choice: 5 years in a federal penitentiary for embezzlement and fraud, or 2 years of community service and probation, specifically assigned to the non-profit that now owned his former assets. He had chosen freedom. But as he wrung out the grey, dirty water from the mop, he wondered if prison might have been more dignified. "Hey, you missed a spot over there." Ethan stiffened. He turned to see Mrs. Higgins, the shelter director. She was a stern woman in her 60s who knew exactly who Ethan was and took immense pleasure in ordering him around. "I'm getting to it, Mrs. Higgins," Ethan mumbled, keeping his head down. "Speak up, Caldwell, and don't look at me like that. You're lucky to have a job. Most felons don't get hired back into their own homes. She marched off, her heels clicking on the floor he had just polished. Ethan grit his teeth and pushed the mop. "Just 2 years," he told himself. "I can survive 2 years. Then I'll move to somewhere. Idaho. Start over." The front doors opened. A gust of wind blew in, followed by a silence that fell over the busy lobby. Ethan didn't look up at first. He was focused on a stubborn scuff mark. But then he noticed the receptionist standing up straighter. He noticed Mrs. Higgins rushing from her office with a smile he'd never seen before. "Miss Vance, what a wonderful surprise!" Ethan froze. His grip on the mop handle tightened until his knuckles turned white. He slowly looked up. Sarah stood in the doorway. She looked radiant. She was wearing a tailored navy suit that screamed power, her hair cut in a chic, sharp bob. She didn't look like the mousy housewife he remembered. She looked like a CEO. She looked like a queen surveying her kingdom. She was flanked by 2 people. One was Liam Blackwood, looking handsome and protective. The other was a photographer, snapping photos of the facility. "Hello, Mrs. Higgins," Sarah said, her voice carrying effortlessly through the space. "I just wanted to stop by and see the new intake wing. We're approving the budget for the expansion next week." Of course. Right this way," Mrs. Higgins fawned. They began to walk across the lobby. They were walking straight toward him. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. Panic flared. Should he run? Should he hide in the supply closet? No. He was Ethan Caldwell. He wouldn't hide in his own house. He straightened up, leaning on the mop, waiting for her to notice him, waiting for the anger, the gloating, the mockery. He prepared a speech in his head, something biting, something that showed he wasn't broken. Sarah walked closer. She was talking to Liam, pointing at the architectural details of the staircase. She passed right by him. She didn't stop. She didn't sneer. She didn't even blink. It was as if he was a piece of furniture. A ghost. "Sarah," Ethan croaked. His voice was rusty. She stopped. She turned slowly, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on him. There was no spark of recognition at first, just a polite, distant curiosity. "Excuse me?" she said. "It's me," Ethan said, taking a step forward. Mrs. Higgins stepped in front of him, blocking his path. "Back to work, Caldwell," Mrs. Higgins barked. "It's okay, Mrs. Higgins," Sarah said, raising a hand. She looked at Ethan. She really looked at him. She took in the grey jumpsuit, the messy hair, the mop in his hand. "Hello, Ethan," she said. Her tone was the same one she used for the receptionist. Polite, indifferent. "You did this," Ethan said, his voice trembling. "You planned all of this. The divorce, the audit, the short selling. You destroyed me." Sarah tilted her head slightly. "I didn't destroy you, Ethan. I just removed the safety net you didn't know I was holding. You destroyed yourself. I just profited from the debris." "I built this house," he shouted, gesturing around. "I bought those curtains. I paid for this floor." "And now you're cleaning it," Sarah said simply. "It seems poetic, don't you think? You treated me like a servant for 10 years. You treated this home like a hotel. Now, you can finally learn the value of maintenance." "I have nothing," Ethan whispered. "Jamie left me. My friends left me. I'm a joke." Sarah stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "You have your health, Ethan. You have a job. And you learned a valuable lesson. Never mistake silence for weakness. And never ever underestimate the person who handles your books." She stepped back, her expression cooling instantly. She turned to Liam. "Come on, Liam. We have a meeting at the Vance Center in an hour. We need to discuss the new solar grid patents." "Vance Center?" Ethan asked, confused. Liam smirked. Oh, didn't you hear? We rebranded Caldwell Tech. It's Blackwood and Vance now. We took down the old sign yesterday. Threw it in the dumpster, actually. Maybe you can go fish it out, if you want a souvenir. Ethan felt the air leave his lungs, his legacy, his name on the skyline. It was gone. Sarah didn't look back. She took Liam's arm, and they walked toward the intake wing, discussing the future. A future that had no place for Ethan Caldwell. Ethan watched them go. He stood alone, in the center of the foyer, the grand house bustling with life around him. He looked at the mop in his hand. He looked at the scuff mark on the floor. A tear leaked out of his eye, hot and humiliating. "Caldwell!" Mrs. Higgins shouted from across the room. "I'm not paying you to daydream. The second-floor bathrooms are clogged." Ethan took a deep breath. He wiped his face with his rough, chapped hand. "Yes, Mum," he said softly. He picked up the bucket. The wheels squeaked as he pushed it toward the stairs, the sound echoing like a dying heartbeat in the house he used to own. He started to climb, one step at a time, into the shadows. And that is the tragic, satisfying end of Ethan Caldwell. He went from the penthouse to the janitor's closet because he made one fatal mistake. He thought his wife was just a background character in his life. He didn't realize she was the director, the producer, and the writer of his entire success story. It's a brutal lesson, isn't it? Cheating isn't just about breaking a heart. It's about breaking trust with the one person who knows all your secrets. Sarah didn't just get revenge. She got justice. She took the pain of betrayal and turned it into an empire, leaving Ethan to clean up the mess. Literally. What do you think? Was Sarah's punishment too harsh, or did Ethan get exactly what he deserved? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of ultimate revenge, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. We have a crazy tale coming up next week about a lottery winner who hid his ticket from his greedy family. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and remember, be careful who you betray.